All right, we're back on the podcast, both with Jasper Rose and Steve Hasman of Future Sox and Ian Eskridge of White Sox Daily. So last week we just covered about the Sox, and this one is mostly just because of what happened yesterday. It's mostly going to be about minor league baseball stuff, and the three of them literally are all going to do the talking for that. But let's first go into the first thing for the White Sox is they signed Andrew Benintendi, 5 years, $75 million. I don't know who wants to take this first, but I mean, this is a pretty outstanding move.
Can we still not swear on the podcast? Heck yeah! Let's go! I'm excited, man. Yeah, like this fills a hole. This fills a need. Is it a sexy signing? No, it's not a sexy signing, but it fills a need, and it shows that the White Sox, even in this inflated market, are not afraid to talk to players and give them what they want. Because Benintendi wanted 5 years, from all that we've been able to gather since the move was announced. He wanted 5 years. He wasn't going to get it from New York. He wasn't going to get it from whichever else, like other team he was talking to. So the Sox said, hey, you should come over here. And let's not forget, the White Sox have an extensive scouting report on him because they tried to draft him and they got swiped. They got sniped with the Red Sox picking him one pick before the Sox eventually took Carson Fulmer. And then they tried to acquire him in the Chris Sale trade that eventually netted us Moncada, Kopech, and the other guys, Basabe and Victor, whatever his name was.
Victor Diaz.
Diaz, that's right. And now they got him. So third time's a charm. I'm excited. I'm happy. And even if he doesn't hit any home runs, he will get on base at a 375-ish clip. And he will probably end the season around 110, 120 OPS plus. And that's all I need from my left fielder right now. And play defense.
Yeah, true. That's my big thing, is it gets the first baseman, Gavin Sheets. And I mean, Vaughn was already out, but it gets the first baseman out of the outfield. Which is the biggest thing, solidifying, some of the defense. I mean, I guess we assume right field will be taken care of internally as well, but like it just helps shore up glaring needs that finally, after identifying for a couple seasons, they've filled it with a real outfielder and a left-handed bat. So it's just kind of like, okay, even like Jasper said, not the sexiest of moves, but it fills a need. They don't necessarily need Andrew Benintendi to carry the offense. They just need him to be good. And that's generally what he's been. He's been a good major leaguer.
And there's plenty of trends that are somewhat worrisome or somewhat like he's not the player he was 4 or 5 years ago, but he's still only 28. So he will be an upgrade defensively over anyone that we could have run out there at this particular point in time. He will get on base a lot. So it's up to the other guys to drive him in.
They'll make a lot of contact. That's another good thing, too.
Thumbs up, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go, Ricky Hahn.
Yeah. And we were just talking about how they were like, haven't made moves, and Jasper's going to get drunk over Joey Gallo. And now we won't have to worry about Joey Gallo, but I don't know about you getting drunk.
Oh, no, you're going to have to worry about that.
I'm just happy I don't have to watch somebody that has the speed of a healthy Yasmani Grandal out in the outfield.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. That's a...
Although I did revisit that throw from Benintendi from left field that dribbled into the infield. I did revisit that yesterday.
That was a bad one. Yeah.
But,
the arm strength is not it. No.
Yeah, but I mean...
That's why he plays left field.
It's an outfielder. It's an actual outfielder that's going to be in the outfield. That's, I said to you guys yesterday, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not underwhelmed. I'm just whelmed. It's not a huge signing, I mean, despite the fact that it is the White Sox biggest ever signing, as far as, contract amounts out.
Free agent contracts.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed
money.
Because Aloy and Luis Robert have options that could lift them across that threshold.
Right. Yeah. I mean, which are probably going to end up being used, I would imagine. But, it's not exactly, I on our stream, I had mentioned to Danny, I was like, if the White Sox had given out the Nimmo contract, I would have been not thrilled.
No.
And the fact that, because just for the fact that had that been the White Sox largest contract and it was, 8 years and 168 million or whatever it was, I would have been very unhappy that was the guy who ended up getting that huge amount of money from the White Sox. But 75 million to 15 million AAV, I can't be upset about that. It's kind of one of those signings that if, in a normal spending franchise, that's what I would expect to have, I mean, Aaron Judge's contract. Yeah. Okay, fine. Like, that's huge amount of money, but the Andrew Benintendi contract is one of those ones that is just a normal MLB contract. It's not crazy spending, despite the fact that it's, the biggest contract for the White Sox that they've given out.
It's a tradable contract too, and that's, I think, one of the reasons maybe that Jerry was convinced to spend the money is that it's very easy to trade a major league, even be it slightly above average major league outfielder with only 50 million AAV contract. Like that is just, if this goes horribly wrong and the White Sox have to blow it all up in a year or two, this is a very tradable contract.
Yep.
And honestly, they do have a lot of money coming off the books. Sorry, James, but after this year, they have money coming off. So it's, it's not like the Benintendi contract should break the Sox from any future spending, since it's reasonable. I think the biggest takeaway. It's a reasonable contract for a very reasonable player. So I mean, it's
And according to Bruce Levine on 670, the White Sox do not even have to trade anyone right now to free up more payroll. He just said that this morning on 670. He said that there was a rumor yesterday that the White Sox now had to trade one of Graveman or Kelly or even Hendricks to keep the payroll at the same level now that they signed Benintendi. But according to Levine, that's not the case. They don't have to trade them. If they trade Joe Kelly or Kendall Graveman right now, it should be for an upgrade to the major league roster, like a second baseman or maybe a right fielder.
Which I'd be totally fine with, honestly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's enough arms in the minors, or we could just sign on the market for one of those guys. I like to trade a lot, or I would like to move a lot, because, like you said, you can easily trade it, and we all know what Benintendi's stock is. He can net some prospects just in case somehow we decide to go the Cubs route in a year. And
even in KC, when he started to fizzle out in Boston and moved to KC under Grifol, among others, he had a pretty good season. And he was traded to the Yankees for, it was not like a deadline move to just get a guy. No, the Yankees thought they'd get better by getting Benintendi. So despite the fact that a lot of people remember him from his last 2 seasons in Boston where he was not very good, he really picked it back up again in KC and with New York. So if that trend continues, and then he knows Grifol, obviously, I'm there's no downside to this.
No, there isn't. And he was an all-star. Obviously, he's got enough firepower around him in the lineup where he doesn't have to act like he needs to go out there and do more than he needs to. So this is a great move. I'm very excited about it. I mean, obviously it's not sexy, but it still makes the White Sox a lot better, and obviously shows you that the team still wants they still got a competitive window.
Yep. And his numbers against the entire AL Central and in Garrett Ray Field are really good.
There we go.
I think his lowest OPS against the AL Central team is 890 or something. It's ridiculous.
I don't think he's going to hit 890 throughout the year, but who knows?
It'd be cool if he did.
Yeah,
it would be.
Yeah.
Suck it, Keith Law.
You think they were just trying to poor Keith Law? You think they were just trying to avoid the billboards outside the stadium? Is that what this signing was about?
Yeah. Well, I think those are still coming.
I think they are.
This is just kicking the can down the road a bit, maybe. But
we'll give it a few more.
Still in need. Yeah.
All right, so let's go into our first talking point. And obviously, like I said, I'm just going to let you guys do all the talking, since you guys, this is your bread and gravy. Like let's go into the minor leagues or review it or whatever you want to say for the White Sox. So the first talking point is, and ironically, Ian is kind of showing the first hint of what we're going to talk about, Project Birmingham. Now, I'm just going to play stupid here. I know what it was all about. Ian, what exactly was Project Birmingham all about, and why was it really important for us to know about?
The quote that Chris Getz used was "iron sharpens iron," and it's just about getting all of the team's top talent together in one place as sort of a instructional, a replacement for an instructional league, but not a replacement. It's kind of a place where they can get everybody together and try and build a team together with the prospects, while also having all of the instructors in the same place and try and have a consistent message for all of the guys throughout the system, which is a big deal because in the last year, they've made a lot of changes in the developmental path for hitters specifically. So getting all those guys together and trying to continue the consistent message of how they want their hitters to attack, I think was a pretty interesting and great idea, and kind of, which is weird as a White Sox fan to say something that they are at the forefront of. What are you guys thinking about, how that was done?
So I'm not fully caught up yet on the YouTube series because I think episode 2 dropped yesterday. I'm going to say I haven't watched it yet, but
this week,
yeah, I saw the first one, and the iron sharpens iron quote is definitely one that stuck with me as well, because I think it's in essence a really smart idea. Like, put all these guys, and if all goes according to plan, a bunch of these guys will eventually make it to Chicago together, or in succession, and they'll play together again. Why not throw them in like the same bowl, start stirring, and see what kind of like amazing 5-star dinner you can cook up with, all these essentially great ingredients that just need to find a way to become this great flavor together. I'm very hungry, so I'm taking this food metaphor a little far, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Like it's really like a very it's like you say, and it's a very progressive, very modern way of going about prospect development. And it's weird to say that about the White Sox, but it's also very good to see that a guy like Chris Getz, who has been getting hyped up for years now within the White Sox organization, and even like outside of it, like he's actually coming up with interesting new things. I think it's a great idea. I hope they do it again next year.
Yeah, and just to even kind of piggyback off you guys, like you both mentioned, like, we're not used to seeing this. The Sox are always 2, 3, 4, however many years behind, and then them essentially doing an in-season instructional league, like at an aggressive affiliate for the majority of these players. Like, and when they even said too that the purpose of this isn't like, we don't care if you fail, it's kind of get the exposure, be around their top instructors, like get the top teaching that they can provide, to kind of get everybody on the same page, even expose them to like, hey, this is like playing at this level is hard, like work on this, like, kind of expose somebody to, this is what you need to do to get better. Because I remember seeing it was a few weeks before I actually made my trip down to North Carolina to hit up the affiliates, which was just kind of poor timing, because I'm like, oh, I'll get to see a few guys, and then it was kind of barren at the time I made it down there. But I'm like, okay, well, it's cool though, because you're getting to see all these guys at once kind of play and feed off of each other. And then, this coming season, I imagine they're not all going to go back to Birmingham. I mean, some guys were promoted from Canny and stuff, so it's like they're obviously not ready. But it's get them. This is the level. Like, you're probably not quite ready for this here. So work on such and such moving forward. I think it's an interesting concept. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe the harder part is, like, I don't know how we'll be able to measure the success or failure of this, but the concept of it, I think it was a great idea. And an in-season instructional league that we actually got to watch, had a live feed and could tune into rather than just like waiting for a James Fegan article, in like November, because that was the only, like, because the Sox don't update anything in that regard. So, I mean, like, I think it was cool. Like, it was cool to see them be in front of it. And they kind of got some positive remarks, like from the industry, even on like, hey, nobody's done this. This is kind of cool. We'll see if other teams adopt it. Like, I mean, I guess we'll see what other teams, even if the Sox continue to do it into this season or future seasons,
And kind of piggybacking on what you said, Steve, is whether or not it was a success or not, because for people like us, we're not going to see what the front office does, or what the rest of that the department looks at. And I was watching a podcast yesterday about it, actually, and they said, the only way we can measure success is by the numbers we see on the paper. And we're, unfortunately, for people like us, we're not going to see that. We're just going to see the numbers. And that's the only downside of this experiment.
Yeah, we don't get to see all the TrackMan numbers. We don't get to see all of the interesting analytical data to see where somebody's, where improvements have been made. The only thing we can go off of is, I mean, obviously I watch a lot of minor league baseball, so I see trends over time and see things like that. But, as far as the analytical data, like, we're never going to get to see that, more than likely. I don't see a baseball savant coming for MILB to, anytime soon, just because it seems like they guard that information for whatever reason, and, the only way we're going to figure it out is as an we're going to have to look at this exactly like, kind of, a timeline type thing where we see the progression for the player and see what they're improving on or what they need to work on and how it progresses throughout an entire season. And from one season to the next, like when these guys got promoted up to Project Birmingham, a guy like DJ Gladney, coming, from Kannapolis, like it was, like Steve mentioned, is that, the odds of him going straight back to Birmingham or whatever, is that he's probably not going to go back to AA right off the bat. I mean, I would imagine he's probably going to go to the Dash, would be my guess. But let's see where that skill set is as compared to where he was when he did Project Birmingham, which was, like, the numbers weren't terrible. They weren't the best, out of the group. But, when he goes back to Winston-Salem and he sees a little bit easier pitching, is it going to be like, fish in a barrel for him, or is there still going to be, like a learning curve there? That this is the kind of stuff that you're going to have to measure when you see all these guys that come from the Project Birmingham and see what the results are this year.
It's also good for morale, because a guy like DJ Gladney, I'm glad you bring it up, because this is a guy that was very hyped right around his draft and the first like season and a half in pro ball. We were all like, oh, DJ Gladney, next big thing. Like, he's doing great stuff over in the, like, what is it, Arizona, whatever it was. And then he cratered for like a season and a half. And it's gotta be this very young kid still. It's gotta be very frustrating for him to have to deal with all that hype, then, fall flat on his face a little bit. But it's all about how you come back. And the fact that the White Sox tell him basically, hey, we still think that you can be part of, the future, part of the core group of minor league talent that we have, by putting him in Project Birmingham, even though it might have been, a little bit out of his reach. I think that's a very good morale boost for a kid like DJ Gladney.
Yeah, to be put around all the rest of the guys that are the, also, like Colson Montgomery and Oscar Colas and stuff like that. They're not, I would assume that he's got to be pretty excited that he would get lumped into the same tier of prospect by the organization. And, Baseball America says that DJ Gladney is the best power hitter in the system. So, it's a it's an interesting move for him to be able to be around those guys and against that elite pitching that tends to be in Double-A. So,
and let those guys teach him stuff too, like off the field. Like, how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with the hype? Because let's be honest, like Colson Montgomery is a first round pick. Gladney was not. So there's more hype around Montgomery. Let him teach a guy like Gladney how to deal with, when things are going your way, when you have success, this is how you deal with it. Or let a guy like Yoelqui Cespedes, who has had a bit of an up and down pro career so far, tell him how to deal with when things are not going as well as you would have expected. Like it's very good to have these kids amongst themselves and talk about their experiences. It makes them feel less alone, I would assume too.
And when speaking of which, I mean, bringing up Montgomery and Colas, how do you think that this program worked for them?
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, Colson's numbers didn't work out as well as he would have liked, I'm sure. But, it's one of those things where he moved up another level and got put. I mean, this super aggressive assignments here, for him to be in Double-A. I was pretty, when I heard the rumblings of him moving to Double-A, and this was before the Project Birmingham news had come out. I was pretty shocked that they were moving him to Double-A already. I was kind of like, are they really doing this? Because that seems like a fairly aggressive. Not that he wasn't doing well at Winston-Salem, because he was, but I just wasn't sure if he was ready for Double-A yet. And then the news of the Project Birmingham stuff came out, and then I was like, oh, okay, all right. Well, now this makes sense, a little bit more sense to me. And obviously, Colas was already in Double-A, and he was already hammering balls 450 feet. So, I mean, I don't think that the Project Birmingham thing was necessarily like a huge, necessarily a huge learning thing for him, because he had already been there for a while and already had pretty good success. And, he got bumped to AAA, shortly into it anyway. So,
are we crazy when we talk about Oscar Colas as someone who's actually been good? Like, I'm seeing all these people, all these skeptics on Twitter, and like Keith Law being one of them, saying like, well, we don't even know if Colas can, no, I don't. We don't know if he can handle major league pitching. Obviously, he hasn't been there yet. But what he showed over the course of a full minor league season last year, like, I am much more excited about Colas now than I was prior to the season, because I was actually one of the more skeptical people about Colas before the season started, because I just did not. It's if you follow his Instagram and his Snapchat like postings a little bit, it's not, it's not always a guy that you feel very confident about that he's going to keep his head in the game, and he was fantastic for a whole season. So, I mean, are we crazy? Are we seeing things that aren't there?
No, I mean, I think like after he debuted, and I think he had like an injury or something to start.
Yeah.
Was it a wrist? Winston-Salem, like, he was fine. And then once he kind of got settled and like recovered and went to Birmingham, is kind of really when we saw him take off and like saw what he could do with the power, saw what he can do, from the left side. It's not that he's even like a platoon aspect hitter. Like, he hit lefties pretty well as well. So it's like, okay, he can kind of do both. He's got a good arm from right, and he was, capable, more than capable, I would say, of being able to cover center field as well. So it's just kind of, it's like getting signing of international on the international market. It's like, you don't know what you're going to get until you see them, until they play and get a little bit of exposure. And then he kind of, I would say, met or even exceeded the expectations, that I had, especially because, he was, for some, thought of like, hey, call him up to the Sox now and dip him into this toxic vat of incompetent goo that's going on with this team. I'm glad they didn't, but like, he put himself in that conversation, which I didn't expect him to be able to do, considering his layoff, from not having played, having to wait to sign, and then getting in. Like, I didn't think we'd see that in a year, and that he's essentially played himself into like, hey, right field is seemingly kind of yours, in 2023. So like, yeah, I don't think it's crazy. Like, I think it's fair to be skeptical because, like, yeah, until it's a sure thing, nothing is a sure thing.
Right,
So, like,
right.
yeah, I get some apprehension, but like, I don't think, expecting what, like, league average hitting maybe with like, hey, you can play defense in right field, like with a strong arm. Like, I don't think that's unreasonable. Like, it's not going to be Gavin Sheets out there, again, that he could throw, but he can't run, he can't catch, like he can only hit at home against righties. Like, yeah, like I think Colas is like at least again, this is basing it on what we saw this season, but like he seems to be a more well-rounded player. He has a bit more offerings than versatility than like Gavin Sheets. So like, I don't think it's unreasonable. It's fair to be skeptical, but like, yeah, I think he seems like he could solve the glaring hole that's been right field for a bit. So.
And
Okay, let's go around the table. 1 year of Michael Conforto at $18 million or Oscar Colas.
I think Colas.
I'd rather see Colas.
I like Conforto. Like, I wouldn't hate it. And if Colas wins, like if he just hits and hits in spring training and forces his way onto the roster, cool. Like, good problem to have, Like, it's hard to find teams that like having too much talent is never a bad thing.
Right.
Sure. I mean, Conforto hasn't played in 2 years.
Sure. Yeah. No, I know. I get that. I've been a big Conforto guy of like what he could bring to the team, like just his skill set of like getting on base, power. Yeah, he had the shoulder injury from like playing football at a wedding or a bachelor party, whatever he did, which is dumb. The amount, yeah, considering the Benintendi signing, probably seems way less likely. I wouldn't hate it. I mean, I'd be cool with Colas. I think that's the route they're going, and that's fine by me. I wouldn't hate Conforto.
Yeah,
I just don't see them spending the money.
I'm team Colas too, and even though I've like one of the furthest home runs I've ever seen in real life was Michael Conforto, but I just the long absence of play, he hasn't really come across as someone who is, I'm going to put this nicely, the sharpest tool in the shed. Is that a nice way of putting it?
Sure.
Sure.
The stories from New York are not necessarily that that he was universally liked amongst his teammates. I don't necessarily feel like we should be hauling in another potential, what did you call it? Tub of toxic goo?
Yeah. However, yeah. So, but I mean, that's even a fair point you made too, is like, he's coming back off an injury after a season where he didn't play at all. So it's like, okay, what are you getting on somebody you're theoretically spending, what, 15 million plus on?
Yeah, whatever. I figured he was going to take more than Benintendi. So
yeah. So like, let's even say 15 is like the low point, if you want to give incentives, or it's like Colas at league min, kind of like it gets to that point too. Is like, all right, if you want to address some other needs, is Conforto at that point just more of like a luxury?
I also think that there's a chance Colas outperforms Conforto straight up if they were to play a full season in 2023. There's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Correct.
There's a pretty good chance. Like, Conforto has a very extensive injury history as well, and he hasn't played in a year and a half, like however long it's been. And Colas raked all of last year. So I mean, like, tit for tat, there's a pretty good chance Colas is better, and then you save 18 million that you can spend elsewhere.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that we keep forgetting about Colas is he's actually been a professional since he was 17.
Right.
Since he's playing in Cuba or in Japan. So honestly, like, I don't know why a lot of people are skeptical, because, like I said, he's been professional. He's not that same type of international free agent that you get, but I think last year he showed what he could probably bring to the majors.
Yeah.
I went and saw Colas on the opening weekend down in Winston-Salem, and the first game that I went to, from what I was expecting, a great arm, and a good hitter. And like mentioned, he did have a wrist injury right off the bat, so his bat speed wasn't quite as crazy as it was later on in the season. But right off the bat, I saw the bat speed and I was like, okay, this guy's probably going to hit very well. But the thing that really surprised me was his defense. And this, like everybody else caught up to this about midway through the season, is that his routes in the outfield are generally pretty good, and he has the speed to make up, and the baseball acumen, just the skill set to be able to pick up on things, that, like say a Gavin Sheets does not have. There was a ball that was hit straight over his head, and I saw him just turn, run straight back, and make the catch right at the wall, on a ball that was hit like 40 feet over his head. And the fact that he just turned and did that, and this is in the second game of the season that he did this, and I was like, we got something here, because it's not every time you see somebody just go out there and just be able to get the ball that's hit straight over their head. That's the one that usually the Eloys of the world, those are the kind of guys that can't make that kind of play. So he's got an advanced skill set when it comes to other things other than just being able to hit a ball 450 feet. So
he doesn't have to do that much. Like, he has to play a decent outfield. He has to hit, like, I don't know, what are we accepting? 240 in his first year in the big leagues. Like, we're not all like Julio Rodriguez, obviously.
Just like some average.
Plug him in right field, plug him in the eighth hole, whatever it is, and you're good to go. And it also depends on who the Sox are going to be having play second base when opening day rolls around, because obviously we have some prospect potential there too. Do you want to run 2 minor leaguers out there on opening day? Maybe not. So if you sign a major league caliber second baseman, you can get away with playing Colas in right field. But I'm with you, and like, I think this might be the moment to just run him out there and see. All right, prove it.
Do you here's the other thing, like, do we think that just promoting Colas to play right field is the best move for them instead of going for a free agent or making a trade?
There's no free agents left. Like, Conforto is by far the best right fielder available in free agency, and I picked Colas over Conforto, so I would rather them plug second base. Yeah. Not that I don't like Lenyn Sosa, but
yeah, I mean, if you're just going to run out a league replacement player, out in the outfield just to make him work, then to me that doesn't seem like a logical place for them to allocate money to. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, they still do need like a fourth outfielder. Like, we don't have one, so like the Sox now have
Victor Reyes.
Yeah, okay. Like I said, they need a fourth outfield. So like, if you want to not necessarily hand him the position and just kind of have, I mean, you just need a fallback plan. You don't want to just depend on like, hey, here's somebody internal again, or here's Gavin Sheets because Colas forgot how to hit in spring training or something. Like, I think giving him some competition is just somebody maybe to like push him a little bit during spring training or whatnot. Like, isn't terrible. Like, it's still needed for the team because they need some depth in that regard. But I mean, yeah, I think kind of essentially handing him the keys, be like, it's your time. Like, let's go. So I think it's a sound strategy if they're going to allocate some resources to, like, again, getting somebody to even compete for second base as well.
Right.
To not just depend on 2 minor league unproven-ish rookie guys and a contending team. Like, having 1 is probably fine. 2, I think, is maybe being a tad aggressive.
Yeah, I agree. It's to me, I'm fine with adding like a couple of right fielders to create some semblance of a competition during spring training, but let that be like a bunch of guys that you sign for like league minimum or for $1 million or for like minor league
invite.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Like,
or even bring back Adam Engel for that matter. I don't think they will.
if he stays healthy, I still don't mind having Adam Engel on the bench because he's a great defensive outfielder and he's super fast as a base runner. Those are two skills that you need off the bench. The problem is when Adam Engel gets pushed into an everyday role. It's the same with Leury Garcia. Leury Garcia is a very handy player to have on the end of your bench. You do not want to have him in the everyday lineup.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, it doesn't really seem to matter for Adam Engel, though, is the problem, is that it doesn't matter whether he's an everyday player or not. The guy can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
It's the best ability is availability. And he is consistently proven that is not one of his skills, which is unfortunate because, he has shown flashes of being a very, obviously above average outfielder. But the bat has never been consistent. And when he finally did start to show that he could hit the ball a little bit, health issues. So why bother? It's kind of one of those things that if it keeps on happening over and over and over again, why force it?
What's the minor league depth in that regard, guys? We have a couple of super speedy guys in the minors, super speedy outfielders.
Duke Ellis.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention Ellis. I was going to mention one of the guys that I'm actually very in on, despite the fact that he was busted for performance-enhancing drugs this past season, was Terrell Tatum.
It's Adderall, though. I don't know whether he's got a prescription or whatever. But
either way, he was suspended and he missed half a season in development.
Very true.
Very true. So that's the whole thing. And Duke Ellis is what, 23, 24?
He's older.
24.
He's a little bit older. Yeah. He graduated from college, I believe. So I think he's probably like 26 at this point.
Let me Google him while you guys are doing that.
Yeah. But even for them, like specifically, like I think if looking at them as like internal options to take on like the fourth, fifth outfielder type role, like I think Yoelqui Cespedes is probably ahead of them, maybe.
I got
but
Ellis,
even that, like I wouldn't necessarily be like super confident, like in like just Ellis, handing it to him.
24.
Well, he is 24. Okay.
24.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, like they have some possible candidates to take over. I think like that Angle role, like maybe next year. I think like when you put in like Ellis, Cespedes, those kind of types, I think like depending on them this season, like from the jump, I don't think that would be a very wise move.
No,
I think you need to bring in like a somewhat proven body to like hold the fort down for a bit and let those guys develop a year further and then kind of revisit it.
Ellis stole 7 bases and 22 at bats, by the way, in Birmingham after he got promoted to Birmingham.
Insane.
Yeah,
he's
kind of a nuts.
Yeah, he was like. So he was so much fun to watch the entire season last year.
His minor league career is basically a full season of at bats, 650-ish. He stole 80 bases in 650 at bats.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool.
Yeah, that'll play.
All right,
that'll work.
Promote him.
No, I mean obviously not, but it's just I wanted to find a reason because I love those toolsy guys. I like the guys like the James Beards of the world too. Like I'm just a sucker for I don't want to say toolsy outfielders because that's like swearing in church here with the White Sox, but guys like Duke Ellis, guys like Terrell Tatum, who I still think is someone we really need to keep an eye on this upcoming season because he was great until he got popped for, well, like you said, Ian Adderall, but still, guys like Duke Ellis, those are especially in light of this whole discussion that's going on in Major League Baseball. Like, do we need to go back to stealing more bases? Like there was a Scott Podsednik interview the other day. Was it the Sox Talk podcast with Chuck? Very interesting conversation about the necessity to reinstate speed into baseball, steal more bases. We got the bigger bases. We got they're doing everything they can to try to get teams to steal more bases. Guys like Ellis and Tatum and name the speedy guys, they might actually be a lot more useful in the upcoming seasons than we're currently thinking.
Yoelqui Cespedes is fast.
Cespedes is another one. Yeah,
he did have I think he had 33 stolen bases this last year. The only issue with Yoelqui is and the thing is that you can use him as that fourth outfielder as far as a defensive skill set. The issue comes
Yeah.
is when you put him in the batter's box, is
Yeah.
that, his pitch selection is still a massive work in progress. And I think the one thing that he has not picked up yet on is the amount of movement on pitches, the difference between what he's used to seeing, from before to what he's seeing now is just, he's not picking up on that outside slider at all. And he'll swing and flail at those things all day long. And that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. And I know it's something that they are addressing, but I mean, it's, until it sees results, that's when you're going to see what he can finally do, so.
Yeah, a bit too a bit too much swing and miss to like make him a dependable, like a plug and play kind of like you're good and right. And so I think like maybe the fourth outfielder type is probably at this point, like the Adam Engel role is probably like his ceiling, just based on swing and miss and not really walking, like questionable, like you said, pitch selection, hit tool. Like he's got pop, like that's apparent. He can cover the outfield, all the positions, got a good arm, and can run. So like he's got aspects, abilities to his game that would definitely help out the team. But I know he was billed as like the number one prospect by Pipeline in that class, which is just not really correct, but whatever. He could be a useful major league player is like his thing, is he could help, like maybe not in the way you thought that of being a starter, but like, you need guys to come from within that are cheap and can fill holes for you. And he could do one. I just don't think this year, at least to start, I don't think he'd be quite ready, because you want to see him make those adjustments, whether he's back in AA or they send him to AAA. You want to see him adapt.
Well, I mean, if
you need a guy, go ahead.
If you believe Pipeline, we should be watching Colas right now striking out, 14 batters a game like Shohei Ohtani,
True.
I'm just
Cuban
saying,
Ohtani.
Cuban Ohtani.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Jasper. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I was going to say, like, if there's a lot of talk too about like how do White Sox need to sign, like the same vein that a lot of like playoff teams signed. God, what's his name again? I'm blanking on the name. The super speedy guy who's had like a bunch of rings and never
Terrence Gore.
Thank you, Terrence Gore. He gets a major league contract every time. Like, all right, it's 3 weeks to go until the playoffs. Where's Terrence Gore? We need to get Terrence Gore on the roster. If there's a lot of like talk about the White Sox needing to sign the base stealer, the guy that you can literally get off the bench in the 8th inning, and you will know for a fact that he will steal a base, and that's the only thing he needs to do.
Bring back Billy Hamilton.
I mean, that's one of the.
But still, it's not. Yeah.
Why not like plug Duke Ellison? Like the dude's literally the fastest runner I've seen like in forever. Like I'm down with it.
Watching
I want to see more steals though.
Yeah, just watching the great, like one of my favorite things to do last season was watch Duke Ellis, because as soon as he'd get on first base, you could just see the demeanor of the pitcher would just instantly change. And as soon as you saw him take a step off of first base, the pitcher was on him, and it was like exactly like, and I'm not saying that he's Ricky Henderson, but it was exactly like Ricky Henderson back in the 80s, where the pitchers knew that he was going to steal, and there was nothing that they could do about it.
They could do about it.
It was so much fun to watch. And
peak Scott Pasetnik was like that for me. Like when like 05, 04, 05 Pasetnik, 04 when he was still with Milwaukee, 05 with us. I like if he like the moment he got on base, you knew he's got this one.
You just knew he's going. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going, and there's nothing you can do to stop him. And I really miss that in baseball nowadays. I really do. So I'm just like, I'm banging a drum for Duke Ellis, which is ridiculous because a 24-year-old who hasn't seen like more than 9 games in AA.
Yeah.
But still, like, I want to see that kind of stuff. I would like to see my team utilize its players to the best of their abilities, even if it means you're only here to steal bases.
And there's definitely some small ball aspects of the sport that are still fun to watch.
Absolutely. Like, I'm not saying like bunt everyone over, but like, put some guys in motion. Like,
yeah,
I'm also
But that was
sick and
a
tired of
roster
the
construction
clogging the
thing.
bases, man, with the White Sox. The last 10 years, we've only seen like slow as hell people on the bases for the White Sox. So I'm like a little over that too.
That's the roster construction
Yep.
issue. But they seem to be, again, going back, they seem to kind of be addressing some of that, like getting guys that don't run with pianos on their backs, you know, putting people in the wrong spot. So like, and even too, I think for the major leagues, I don't know if they have it for the minors, but like the pickoff rules, like you can only throw over like twice or three times, and the third time you have to get them, you know, like whatever it is. So it's going to limit that. So like that kind of gives, in addition to the bigger base stealers a theoretical advantage that they can't just grind you down with eight pickoff attempts so that you won't run. So like like I got a couple, look out for the good move, and then go. So like I think that'll help kind of bring that aspect back to the game. And I guess for me, is like if the Sox do stick to somewhat of like an internal option at second, whether it's Lenyn Sosa to start, I think my guy that I've been championing for quite a bit for future Sox, Jose Rodriguez. That's a dude, like, that he's a ball player. Like, he's maybe nothing super flashy, but he steals a lot of bases. He can hit for some pop. He can cover the infield. Like, I think that's a kind of player that could take over. You could kind of plug in second. He can add that aspect to the team that, like Tim can run, Luis Robert can run. Yohan used to be able to run. I don't know what happened really to that.
None of them are anymore though. Like,
yeah,
they're
that's
not
the thing.
running.
None of them really are running. So it's like you could kind of not necessarily, you don't need to depend on them to do it. You could bring in an influx of these other guys that like, hey, kind of just do these little things, do these aspects that maybe our team is lacking in. And I think somebody like Jose Rodriguez, especially after he made his adjustments in Birmingham, he started slow, but again, he was 20, 21 in a very aggressive assignment. And then like once June hit, he started getting better. July, August, he was on fire. And then, unfortunately a broken hamate cut his season a little short, but he made the adjustments and you saw the progression. Like he went from a very unheralded signing in that class to like, oh, this is a dude. He's a easily top 10 prospect, in the Sox system now. So it's like, okay, this is a guy, which is why I'd be all for like a short term, maybe like if you want to get somebody for a second, like I think the Sox have enough, at least it seems that they have enough middle infield depth that they could theoretically fill second base in a year or two internally with like a good option, rather than like, hey, here's Leary Garcia again. It's like they have guys that can actually provide value.
Yeah, do we think Jake Berger's going to get traded? Speaking of like moving people to second base and pulling like a Berger into third base, what are we going to do with Berger?
We always keep thinking he's going to get traded, but he just never does. So I'm just going to go with I don't know.
Because at this point, like, what are we going to do? Like, if you're talking about filling second base with a guy like Jose Rodriguez, that's fine. But you can also still say, like, Moncada played a lot of second base in his career. Just move him to second, put Berger at third.
Berger can't field, though.
No, he can't field for shit. But, sorry, James.
And it's like Moncada was bad at second. So, I get it. Better at third, so leave him there. I mean, for Berger, if he's got options, like, he's great to have in a pinch, I guess, if like an inevitable like Moncada injury comes up. But like, I don't know, but he's another thing of like bat first, minimal at best glove, to where it's like, okay, like, if you need him to fill in a bit, he's a DH,
right.
He's a space DH guy that can
we have
shove it third for a bit.
Maybe
so
first
like,
base.
I mean, I don't know.
Are we trading him?
So like,
are we trading Berger?
That's what I was saying. Like I don't know. I mean, yeah,
like
maybe a second baseman, but I doubt it.
Yeah,
he was still like top 5 in home runs at the end of the season last year, and he played like 30 games,
something
like that, or 50 games. Back to Popeye real quick. Thing about Jose Rodriguez, it took him some time to get going, but like you said, he was on fire. I mean, he ended up hitting 5, tied the Southern League record for home runs in a row in games, 5 games in a row. And not to mention, when he did break his hamate bone, he actually hit a home run with that broken hamate.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
So-
It was ridiculous. I remember
The
watching
guy,
it.
yeah, insane. The guy
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, he does have a penchant for swinging at lots of baseballs, but the thing is that it's not quite to the Nick Madrigal thing where, with the bat to ball skill where he can literally hit everything. But it's pretty close. That's part of the issue is that, that's why he swings at everything is because he knows he can hit everything. And that was the problem with Madrigal as well, is why he wasn't taking walks, is because he knew that he could hit every pitch that was thrown up to the plate. And so he didn't have to be selective.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that needs to be addressed a little bit if you want to see like a little bit higher on base percentage out of, Popeye, but the guy's tools are crazy.
Did you see, was it MLB Network or Bally Sports that had a projected Cubs starting lineup, Nick Madrigal, DH?
Oh,
Put him at cleanup.
That'd be light. But yeah, even for Popeye too, just to kind of one last thing to touch on. Like, I think like he's Madrigal light maybe in the contact-ish department. Like he swings a lot, but he doesn't like strike out a lot, and he doesn't like walk a lot. He's got more pop in the
way
bat.
more.
So
Way
it's
more.
not like
That's not hard.
It's only like maybe doubles. Like he can drive the ball. So that's kind of like where, okay, like you swing too much, but like you haven't been exposed at double A, especially with like your aggressive approach.
Right.
Like, sure, you could shore it up a bit more to maybe be a tad more selective, but like, if it ain't broke, like don't fix it. If it works for you, man, like it works. Like, I'd love you to get on base at a 350 clip with some walks, but like, dude, if you're just gonna hit, all right, that works too.
Yeah, he did 340 last year, OBP with
cool.
getting
that
walks.
works.
So
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, fine. I'm saying if the hit tool will carry you, like how it does for Timmy, like if that hit tool is gonna carry you to like that level, fine. Let it ride.
right.
Perfect world scenario. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, exactly.
I was gonna say if they were gonna fill in a need internally for either second base or right field, and they've decided to go to second base route, I've always clamored for Rodriguez. Everyone talks about Sosa, but I'm like, I don't know. I like the tools that Rodriguez has.
Well,
I
Sosa's
do too,
numbers
but-
that he put up last year were
I'm not disagreeing. Yeah,
ridiculous. So
He's much further in his development. Sosa is this. He's clearly first in line.
I just think Rodriguez has a higher upside.
Eventually maybe, but what Sosa did last year
Was pretty good in minors,
the de facto number one second base option for me.
Yeah, that's like he put up like Luis Robert numbers at Birmingham. So you can't just go, that's cool and all, but we're gonna go ahead and bump this guy just because we feel like it. You can't.
Which it's fascinated me too, because I was about to go very sour on Lenyn Sosa as a prospect after so he's not taking any real strides. It's not good. It's not getting anywhere. He's been around for a while. He's been in the system for a while. And now I suddenly feel like I need to take guys like Luis Mieses seriously as well, who I was also very much sour. And I think I left him out of our Future Sox top 30 even, Steve. I don't remember exactly where I put him, but I think I had Mieses out of the top 30. That's how pessimistic I was. And then you suddenly see Mieses show signs of something. Like there might be some delayed breakthroughs here with guys that have just been around for so long that we're just we're prospect tired of
Andy Barquette.
It's the Andy Barquette influence, maybe. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he said that he specifically worked with Lenyn Sosa before this, in spring training this year, and I think in the camps beforehand, they were specifically working on pitch selection.
Yeah, well, Mieses needs the same. Mieses needs the exact same. He
did. He improved a lot this year as far as pitch selection goes. So, and both of their results, I mean, you saw it. Luis Mieses led the Sal and doubles this year.
Yeah.
And put up, almost 300 average there. And then he went to double A and he hit 299 there too with a couple of home runs. So
and that was a guy again left off the top 30 about a year ago when we handed in our top 30 list for Future Sox.
Yeah. I mean, it was the thing too, is like even to kind of touch Sosa and Mieses, is like they hadn't really shown a lot.
Anything,
And then
anything.
Nothing.
yeah, I
like
mean, like
Mieses is a
Sosa,
first baseman. Like he did
yeah,
not hit like a first baseman.
exactly. And even for Sosa too, is like it always like the big thing with him, and I know a lot of people are harping on like, oh, he didn't look ready and stuff. It was like if you followed him like throughout his minor league career, like he'd always taken a little time to adapt to a new level, and getting thrust from double A to the majors, like yeah, that's a big adjustment. And then like getting the sporadic playing time and then getting sent back down to Charlotte. And then, you know, it took him a little bit even there to get used to adapt at Charlotte, but something kind of clicked near the end and he performed much better. So like, especially if he's able to play at second, like with that power output he had, like you don't find that a lot at second base. And like, you know, he's not maybe a burner like on the base paths, but I think like
he did all right.
well, but I'm, you know, he's not going to steal you 40 bags. Like he can move, you know, yeah. But it's like I think having that, like, okay, like you can't like you mentioned, Ian, like he put up like Luis Robert, like in similar to like Eloy numbers in Birmingham, and that doesn't happen too often,
Right.
You know, like. So it's kind of, you can't really ignore it, and you don't just want to put it by the wayside because of like 30, you know, meh at bats in his first taste or two in the majors. Like,
yeah, it's unfair to judge at that point.
Exactly. Like you kind of got to give somebody a little time to like adapt. Not everybody comes on like just crushing away. Like they need to make adjustments for the best pitching they've ever seen in their life. You know, like. It's not hard, or you know, it's not easy to do, to just like adapt like that. Like, okay, I got it now. I mean, some people can, but that's, you know,
it frustrated me to no end that La Russa wasn't playing Sosa at all. Like last year,
angry.
Like I
had to get Larry his at bats. You know, had to.
It was like you got to earn it. You got to earn it. But there's no way. Like La Russa kept saying, like, well, you got to earn your at bats. Like, play the dude. Let's see if
have you seen his at bats.
Yeah, right. What are we talking about? Like, I'm 100% with you, Steve. Like, you need to be able to adjust to a level, and I mean, Sosa. I mean, when he got sent to AAA, rake there as well, and obviously that's an easier ballpark to hit in than Birmingham by far. But still, like, put the guy in the lineup every day and see what he does, and don't put him on the bench and say he has to earn the at bats. Like, how? By getting coffee? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, hard to earn the at bats when you don't swing a bat. You know, it doesn't really make sense.
No, it does not.
You know, most things didn't make sense last year.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue for honestly going into, we were talking about the top 10, top 30 prospects. Obviously, Jasper and Steve, you guys have one for your website. Kind of talk about some of the players that are some of the top prospects within the system, and maybe a player that we don't know much about, who we should be on the lookout for. Like
Terrell Tatum.
Yeah,
there you go. Terrell Tatum. Andrew Perez is my other guy. Like, I've been banging the Andrew Perez drum for 3 years, maybe even. Like, that's if you texted us before the broadcast, like saying, hey, come up with a couple of guys that are maybe not as well known, like the Yoelqui Cespedes and the Colases of the world. And those are my two guys. Andrew Perez had a very good season again, just an incredibly high strikeout rate, has been maintaining that strikeout rate for several seasons now. Lefty out of the bullpen. I like him at a same or even better level that where Bennett Sousa was last season around this time. And Sousa eventually like had some time in the big league bullpen for reasons that were obviously had a lot to do with roster construction too, but still, if you're asking me a guy to watch, Andrew Perez, and to an extent Hunter Shriver now again too, because I was a little like iffy on him, but he came back very good from his injury. So
there you go. Did he retire?
I hope not. Then I look like an idiot now.
I don't know. I don't know. He was hurt. I thought he retired or something at the end of the season. I'm not sure.
Really?
I think so.
Well,
but
don't wait for Hunter Shriver to do anything then.
I mean, it was all very confusing.
That would be weird though, because he was actually good again this year.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure if something was going on or whatever, or Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
don't know.
voluntarily retired.
All right.
So
So,
So
there's
I
that.
mean, it could
I'll
have just
stick with
been
Andrew Perez and Terrell Tatum then.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
well,
very
shit.
nasty slider for Perez. Very
Yeah.
nasty slider.
Just crazy
yeah,
strikeout numbers.
Yeah, he had issues in Charlotte with giving up, bombs in Charlotte, but then again, a lot of pitchers do. So very, I did an interview with him. Very, very nice guy. Super motivated, and you see good results from him. I mean, he's come up through the system and he's paid his dues. He should be getting a shot here, I would assume, coming up here like this next year. He's got to be getting a serious look for bullpen.
Best
I would
nickname in the system as well, by the way.
El
Platano.
Yeah, if you're into plantains, yeah.
Plantain foods.
I can't do it, but let's see here. So is there anybody that you guys were surprised that moved up on the prospect list at all, that came out in the top 10s, top 30s that just came out?
For me, I think BP had Luis Mieses in their top 10 as number 10.
Whoa.
I know they've always been
nine. Yeah.
Oh, 9. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
He made the top 10.
Yeah.
And I know they've always been one to kind of have a guy that's maybe out of they kind of like not select the favorite. I mean, I remember they did that a couple of years ago with Avery Weems. Like he cracked the top 10. Kind of like an out of left field, so to speak.
Yeah.
Player candidate. So I mean, that one kind of caught me off guard, just like because most common lists, I think even ours, like he's 20-ish, which is I think fair. It's reasonable, like given what he'd done. I guess they're big on the power. I think, from what I recall. That was really the most surprising. Every list that I've seen, for the most part, has been pretty chalk with the same 10 names. It varies so on the pitching rankings, like if Vera's up higher, or Paulette, or Sean Burke. I've seen even as high as like 5. I think. Let me see if that was Baseball America. Yeah, like he's 5. So like it seems to be the same 10 guys, just given how you want to rank them. At least after, I think the kind of easy one, Colson, Colas, and Brian Ramos, for the most part, seems to be like, okay, this is kind of where top 3, and then you can adjust after that. I mean, for me personally, like, I don't know. I would kind of put Paulette at 10, 9, 10, just because. I mean, he had good reviews coming out of the draft and stuff, but I mean, he hadn't, as a guy who hadn't pitched, so it's I don't know. Maybe they're just doing it based on the pedigree, but like whatever. It's just picking nits, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really interested to see though what Noah Schultz is capable of doing like this coming season. Like he's not nearly under the radar. He was their first round pick, but I want to say they said their goal was like 100 innings pitched. So I mean I still imagine he'll be on somewhat of a pitch limit to start, but just like all the stuff, he got great reviews during an Instructs or whatever little tricky league they have down there right now. I don't know. That's a guy I'll be very interested in watching and following this year, just to see like, okay, what do we have in store for us potentially?
I mean, Baseball America says he's got the best slider in the system. So
yeah. So I mean, like that frame, the velocity, the stuff, especially if he's capable of starting, like that's not very common. Is maybe more of an under the radar type. I guess you can probably. I mean, for me, like I'm Jordan Sprinkle or Tanner McDougal.
I was just about to bring him up. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I mean, Tanner McDougal, he's coming back from Tommy John, and that guy he was a high spin rate pitcher coming out of high school, so it'll be just interesting to see where he's at. I would think probably a canny start guy, but Jordan Sprinkle, he is like I think he's already rated like the best defensive infielder like in the system, and he was drafted in June or July, whenever they pushed it to. His question was they tried to in college, I guess, tweak some things with the bat, and it just didn't work.
He got
So if
home
the
run
Sox
happy.
can, yeah, if the Sox can get him on track with like, oh, this guy is like he's legit shortstop, and you can get that bat on track, like look out, because that's a profile that is very appetizing. You know, is just a prospect town
Yeah,
to like just watch
it's
this.
Tim Anderson with a good defense. Like
Essentially, yeah.
that's his ceiling. Like it's like
Sure,
TA
yeah,
TA is a great hitter. He just can't field for shit. Like this guy can do both.
yeah.
Oh,
And I mean,
yeah.
and that's what like that's kind of the like okay, because even him like coming into this to this year, I believe was like he was getting like first round grades, and then it was just like the hitting,
Yeah.
whatever he got power happy or pull or something, whatever happened to him, that it kind of tailed off a bit. So it's like that, and, and Andy Burkett seems to be doing some good work with some of these hitters. So maybe they get him into their or their hitting lab or whatnot, and like fine tune some things with the swing. And you know, I think that's a guy with that kind of profile that could rise very quickly, through the system, just because of his defensive ability. Given if he hits a little bit, he's at worst a utility infielder guy that can just cover all the positions if you need it. So
And on the other end of the spectrum, I think like guys like Andrew Dahlquist, they are going into like a make or break year, because Dahlquist was terrible this year. I mean,
Terribly inconsistent,
Yeah.
That's his issue, is that the consistency has been all over the place. He'll
Right.
have an inning where he looks untouchable, and then the next inning he'll give up 5 or 6. It's I don't know. He's kind of an enigma. It's like one of those things where he can look so good, but he can also look so bad,
Yeah.
in the same outing. So yeah, I agree.
What do you think
was
of
like-
Ryan Burrows?
What's that?
What do we think of Ryan Burrows? Like as an up and comer, like he's. I remember James Fox brought him up with us in the Future Sox chat like a couple of months ago. He made it into the Pipeline top 30 now as well. I think he's maybe even in the top 20.
yeah, he's 20.
20.
Really?
There you
Right
go.
now.
Yeah. So
Yeah, interesting. But that's the thing too. It's like all the DSL stats you can only
yeah, it's all
take
inflated,
for
yeah.
so much, and like once he's stateside, get a little better feel.
Lloyd
for-
El Chapelli, same
same thing. Like
same thing with him. Yeah.
yeah, he tore up for the most part the DSL, which he should.
Yeah.
But that's a nice, intriguing little like profile. He's a smaller dude, but they have him at second, lefty with some pop, and like okay, cool. Like you did what you're supposed to do in the DSL. So like okay, prove it stateside. So I mean they have some of those lower. It seems like those lower minor guys that international, especially Marco Patty's been doing a good job plucking these diamonds in the rough out, it seems. And I don't know, like the development has been working, so it's like okay, just see what you got.
One guy, if we're talking about the DSL guys, one guy that Andy Barquette's been banging the drum for is Carlos Jimenez. So he's a left-handed catcher from I think he's from the Dominican, if I remember correctly. No, Panama, right? Panama. I think Panama. First baseman. Yeah. First baseman from Panama. That guy he can hit a ton. I've seen him smack some nasty, like 440-foot home runs. Granted, we're talking DSL and Panamanian League or whatever, but interesting guy to watch out for.
Eric Hernandez to an extent as well. Came with a little more hype, obviously. Was he signed in the same year as Yoelki? I forget.
It was either that or just the one after.
Yeah, I think it was it was probably the one after, because Yoelki was already stateside when Eric Hernandez just signed. I think he had just gotten stateside.
Mm.
One of the guys that's under the radar that I'm looking for, being a guy that we've already seen play a little bit over stateside, Jacob Burke, center fielder from Kannapolis, made Sports Center
Yeah.
last year with the insane catch out in center field, and put up some decent numbers in Canny last year, hit 280 and looked like a baseball player, which is something that we like. So yeah, it's a guy that I'm looking forward to see what he can do this year.
That should be a box on a scouting form. Looks like a baseball player, yes or no? Because that's a thing.
Can he play baseball? That's the thing. We have so many guys that we've watched come through the system, over the last, 15, 20 years where, that guy does not know how to play baseball.
No.
He can hit a baseball. Sure. Again, like if he gets a fastball down the middle, yes, he'll hit a baseball. But can he play baseball? No, he cannot.
Sam Abbott.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the guy I always automatically go to when you bring up something like, can he play baseball? No. Can he hit a baseball? Sure. Yeah. If you lob him up there, he will hit him 500 feet. But can he play baseball? Absolutely not.
Can he play water polo?
Very well, apparently.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we got a cricket player as well down in the system.
Yeah, the Indian guy, right?
Yeah, Karan Patel. And
yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's a good pitcher. So, granted, he's a bowler when he plays cricket, I guess. So that makes,
perfect sense.
Kind of lines up a little bit. But
Checks
yeah. But he's moved up, quite a bit in the last year. So I don't know. We'll see where he ends up.
Wasn't he one of the guys that the John Hamm movie was about?
Yeah,
John Hamm,
I think those are like
that was Pittsburgh. No, it was Pittsburgh or something.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, none of those guys ended up doing anything.
Yeah.
One thing that I was talking to you about, James, was the depth at Charlotte.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue to our last talking point is the lack of depth in this farm system. Obviously, Charlotte is kind of not good, and obviously our farm system is not as bad as made out to be, but it ain't the best. So, Ian, if you want to take the lead on this one, go on right ahead.
Yeah, I just, one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to ask, Jasper and Steve is, I assume you saw all of the guys who got DFA'd and released, outright released from Charlotte, or guys that are now free agents. What are the Knights going to do for pitching depth? Because last year it was not good, and we saw that they signed all sorts of guys who have been in the White Sox system at various points, and then left, and then come back, and then left and come back. I think Sean Burke's probably it might be Cade McClure. Those are like the two guys that are still like in Charlotte. Other than that, are we going to be watching bullpen games?
John Park.
Oh, John Park, yeah. I forgot about John Park, yeah.
I think
what they're going to do is coax Hunter Shriver out of retirement, and then the problem is solved.
Maybe that's why he retired, because he was sick of doing bullpen things. But, I think they're definitely going to... They saw that that's not sustainable, because it was just all the injuries. And then, I think Jonathan Stever was even, working his way back some. And, that's a name that talked about, a fall from status. Like, he had risen up the prospect rankings and then fell just as fast, based on injuries and whatnot. But I think they have to address that. Whether that's just signing a bunch of 4A guys to just hold the fort down, because whatever, you need starters to be able to. I get Charlotte's definitely not the most appealing place to pitch because it's just not like probably going to get shelved. But they need some guys to just be able to wear it for 5 innings, like
Eat
a day.
eat them up.
Yeah, just because like they can't, like you just can't do that. Like it's not a sustainable path to, because I mean then you're killing your other depth and your status when you're having these guys that are just supposed to be whatever middle relievers or high leverage guys that have to come in and cover 2-3 innings at a time that they're not generally accustomed to. So I mean you're just doing yourself more of a disservice, and then having your team play from behind because you're doing a bullpen day, 70% of the time or whatever. Like it's
Insane.
they have to do something, whether that's they address a bunch of 4A guys in January, February, spring training. They just get them to come in and just hold it down. Because I think like you said, like Sean Burke is probably like, okay, he'll maybe start there. And then I think Cade McClure is now just like they've moved him to the bullpen, and he had a lot of success doing that. So I don't think they want to keep switching him back and forth. But it's like, okay, after that, like where are you going? Like you shove Stever back in, maybe. Okay, you still need 3-4 guys to cover the rest. So
They claimed a starter from Asheville a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Ernesto Jaquez.
Yeah.
Those stats are not good.
Yeah, no. I put up some stuff on White Sox Daily's Twitter. Just one of the starts against the Dash, and another part of the problem with the Asheville Tourists is that there's no cameras there, so we did not get to witness Oscar Colas's first stateside home run because it was at Asheville.
Tell me it was off of Ernesto Jaquez.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I
best.
didn't even actually look at. I didn't look to see who it was off of. So actually, now I'm going to look. But the game that I put up, he ended up getting the win in it, but he gave up, I think, 5 runs or something like that, and I think he gave up 4 home runs or something like that. The guy's very inconsistent with his control. There's no way he's going to end up in Charlotte, and if he is, he's going to get shelled.
Well, he's currently on the Charlotte roster, so
I think that's just like I think that's what they had to do for the
might just be a formality.
For the formality thing.
I mean,
it was the AAA phase of that draft, so I think they just take everybody and like they get shoved there, and then they later when they assign people, they might send them to.
At this point, this is the most like inconsistently constructed roster ever. There's a whole bunch of pitchers, 2 catchers, 2 infielders, 6 outfielders, and that's it. So there needs to be some shoveling. It also doesn't have Lenin Sosa listed at all on the AAA roster. So
I guess he's on the major league roster technically. I don't.
He's on the 40-man, but that's a separate category here. Even it says that no other players are listed as 40-man players on Charlotte. They also don't have a coaching staff. They have an interim manager and a pitching coach. That's it. No one else, because obviously Chris Johnson was promoted. They haven't hired a new hitting coach yet. So currently there's 2 coaches listed, an interim manager and a pitching coach. Might get to work on that too.
Well, we know this White Sox like to release all their rosters and stuff like 12 minutes before first pitch of the season. So I imagine we won't hear about any of those until right before they start, other than like 40-man guys getting option. Like obviously we'll know about that.
They did just add the catcher we were talking about before the show, Sebastian Rivero, signed as a minor league free agent and assigned to the Charlotte Knights just yesterday.
Okay, so yeah, they got some stuff going, but he's
also not good.
Well,
put that out there.
Well, there's that.
Par for course.
So
yeah,
I think building up the pitching depth just to have bodies in Charlotte needs to be an emphasis, because you don't want to send guys that aren't necessarily ready for Charlotte up to just get shelled, because that doesn't help them at all. So I think you get a bunch of those 4A pitchers that want to keep playing, and here you go, have at it, And if you want to promote somebody, you can make room easily. Throw somebody on the developmental list or Phantom IL, whatever you got to do. But I think they need to get an extra few bodies there just to cover that. I mean, I think maybe from like the offensive wise, like yeah, I mean, what Victor Reyes will be there probably, and
Yep.
you'll need a few guys, but I don't know. I guess you could theoretically see like Cespedes there, or I don't know if they get crazy and get another outfielder. Colas could go back. I don't. I doubt they would play like service time manipulation because like that doesn't matter really.
Yeah, not
If you're
anymore.
trying to win, like what is it like? Start him with a team if he's your best. If he's your best option, start him. You know, like you know, who cares about the extra year of control? Like when you're trying to win right now. You know, win right now. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been
the,
watching the minor league waiver wire here, and I'm watching starting pitching go off the board, and I'm just wondering when the White Sox are finally going to start signing some starting pitching for Charlotte because they need it. Although, I mean, I know that they've got
There are
some guys coming off
17
of injury,
guys.
but
There are 17 guys listed on the Birmingham Barons roster in the starting or in the pitching segment. 17. So they do need to move some players around there. Maybe
Yeah.
move one or two up to Charlotte. But
I can't remember in the minors if there's like a minimum for pitchers or anything like that on the roster. Yeah, I didn't think so.
yeah,
So,
there's
yeah.
not a minimum for anything as far as as far as I can remember. Because if there, there is, you know what, there is a limit. I just don't remember how much it is. They managed to screw around with Project Birmingham by putting guys on the development list and then taking them off and all that stuff. But I don't think that I don't think it's like a publicized thing of like. I mean, you actually have to go looking for it to find out who's on the developmental list and then who gets reinstated and whatever. And because last year they put Jared Kelly on the developmental list first, but then I didn't see anything on the list of transactions, and he was pitching for the Barons. So, you know, exactly like how much of that stuff is actually publicized and put out there, who knows? So I guess we'll find out.
yeah.
Yep.
a lot of fun players on that Birmingham team though. So
It was like, wasn't there like 40 guys on that roster at one point? It's just
Felt like
I think
it.
it was more than that.
wow.
Yeah.
The only thing was that a bunch of the guys that were the incumbents in Birmingham, a couple of them did get DFA'd like right before Project Birmingham started. So I think that like 3 guys were gone at that point. But yeah, they still ended up bringing like 15 guys, 20 guys there. So it was still obviously, you know, the roster went from here to here as far as, you know, amount of guys that were on the roster. So, but as far as the limits, I can't remember like what the actual limit is, because if you looked in that dugout during Project Birmingham, the dugout was filled. So, you know, normally, you know, some guys can find a place to stand. With Project Birmingham, there was nowhere to stand. So,
Well, that's a good sign, actually. So it shows you like how aggressive they want to be with this, with making their minor leagues have better depth, but also, you know, just have more talent that they can trade.
well, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about the trades right now because I'm not. I don't know what they're going to get back. It's the thing that with the White Sox roster, you know, with their farm being ranked like what 25th or 26th, depending on who you talk to. It's kind of back to where we were at the beginning of the phase where all the guys started coming up. Is that it's top heavy again, and it's all the depth stuff that you hoping kind of starts getting a little better year by year by year. And I kind of feel like that's where we're at. Is that the top, you know, top 10, 15 guys seem like they're very talented and they could possibly have a nice career in the major leagues. It's the stuff underneath that. That's the stuff that we're hoping finally starts kind of making the jump up, raise the floor and the ceiling, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just teams like the Dodgers or Tampa Bay, they just always have these great farm systems because they don't always have. They might have some like studs, like let's say a Wander Franco at the time or Vidal Brujan, but they always have so much depth, even like the top 25 or 30 guys that could be impact major leaguers.
Keep churning them out.
Yeah.
Maybe the Marco Patti can change that up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see.
Scout
We
of the
should get
year.
a new class coming in too,
Yep.
in about a month or so. So
Oh,
we'll
that's
see.
right.
We'll see what happens there. I think the Sox have very minimal reported interest signings, however they want to phrase the pre-deals right now. But yeah. So I mean, we'll see what trickles through, I guess, in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll be another podcast we'll talk about when it comes to other stuff. Obviously, since it's gonna be the new year and hopefully more things to be talked about, especially maybe even roster projections or possible storylines or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to think about some podcast ideas. But guys, do you have anything else you want to say about maybe the state of the minor league system or depth or
Fingers crossed.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, making progress, but still need a lot more
long way
work
to-
to be
yeah.
done. So I mean, encouraging, but not there yet.
On its way up.
Yeah.
Well, we all know that Ricky's boys don't quit. So
Ricky Hahn.
Yeah, Ricky Hahn now.
Yeah, that's
I purposely put that on after last week just to the irony, and God, let's just hope these guys actually do play well.
I guess we'll find out.
Counting on it.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and maybe we'll see in the couple weeks. But happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate, and Happy New Year.
If anything.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, gentlemen.
Yes. Happy
Guys.
holidays.
All right, guys, and we'll see you in the next podcast.